Hello and welcome to this issue of Motive Garage, proudly supported by Just Car Insurance. Now in this issue, we're back working on Jet 200, our Timatec project car, and we're going to be looking at, analysing and upgrading our fuel system. Now we've teamed up with the guys from Aftermarket Industries, as we've had a lot of success with those guys on our R32 GTR project car, and the guys not only provide parts, but also provide a complete fuel system package solution and are good with plenty of advice as well. Now fuel systems are very important in race cars for various reasons. Obviously they need to be compatible for the type of fuel that you're using, and most importantly, you need to make sure that your fuel system doesn't suffer from fuel surge like a factory fuel system can. Now before you ask, yes, we had a pretty extensive fuel system in Jet 200 already, and it did work. However, it does have a few issues. Firstly, back when we built it in 2011, there wasn't a lot of E85 compatible stuff, so some of the equipment in our fuel system hasn't survived the last 4 years of racing the car. And the second big problem with our current fuel system is it's very complicated and has a lot of components, which obviously also makes it quite heavy. So the goal with our new fuel system is quite simple. We want it to be E85 compatible. We want it to be very simple, especially compared to the old system, by not having a lot of components. And most importantly, for a Timatec car, we want our fuel system to actually be much lighter than it used to be before. Now we've decided to go for one of Aftermarket Industries' fuel cell setups. And the reason for this is it ticks all of the boxes. Most importantly, it's very simple. It has an inbuilt surge tank, which means we don't need an external surge tank, we don't need a separate lift pump, and we don't need external pumps and filters. The beauty of their billet bulkhead and fuel hanger design is you can fit up to 3 Walbro pumps in this assembly. It drops into the tank and essentially sits inside an inbuilt surge tank. Now obviously a setup like this costs more than a normal fuel cell, but once you have the Walbro set up in this and in the tank, you don't need to buy an external lift pump, you don't need external filters, as obviously the filters are attached to the Walbro pumps, and you also don't need to worry about having lots of lines everywhere and fabricating an external surge tank. In other words, it completely simplifies your entire fuel setup. So let's take a look at the Aftermarket Industries fuel cell. It is an absolute piece of artwork. The CNC folded alloy, as well as all of the welding, is probably some of the best welding I've ever seen. All of the attachments for the billet bulkhead, the fuel filler, and also a fuel level sender, they're all made out of billet before they're welded in. So in terms of the quality of the finished product, it is amazing. Now if you take a look inside, it uses F1 style technology in terms of not only having baffles for the surge tank, but the way the baffles are designed is to actually stop the waveforms as the fuel sloshes around to try and keep it as stable as possible. Each chamber has different style holes in it, suited specifically for that, because obviously the whole idea is you want to keep as much fuel as possible inside the pickup area. Now we'll switch over to this for a second. Another great thing about the design in terms of the surge tank is their billet fuel hanger. The return from the actual tank comes down this billet tube, which is adjustable for length, and actually dumps the return fuel right in the base of the surge tank. So this means the fuel coming back from the engine goes straight into the surge tank to make sure the surge tank section always has the right amount of fuel that you need for the pickup. Now the Aftermarket Industries fuel cell comes with an aircraft grade fuel filler that goes in here. Now it also has a spot for a fuel level sender, so if you do put this into a street car or a car where you need to know your fuel level, you can put one in. We're just going to cover that up with an alloy plate, as we pretty much just fill it up and go out every single time and don't worry about what the levels are mid-session. So overall, as a kit, obviously it comes with the billet bulkhead as well as the fuel hanger setup. Now you do need to buy your own fittings based on what you need and also how many pumps. You can choose how many pumps you want to get with it. Now one thing Aftermarket Industries has worked heavily on is making sure they don't suffer from vibration or a lot of noise. If you take a look at these rubber washers, Aftermarket Industries had these rubber washers here actually made specifically to fit the hanger and made specifically for the Walbro pumps that we're using, so that you don't get any metal on metal contact. That obviously reduces vibration, reduces noise as well. I suppose in a race car it's not so important, but in a street car, very important to do so. If you take a look at the hanger assembly, the return tubes are actually adjustable for length. The fuel pump holders are adjustable for length, so you can put different fuel pumps in. And the most importantly, you can adjust the levels so this thing sits right at the bottom of the fuel tank perfectly. You can see in here, there's 3 openings for 3 pumps. One of them's blocked off in our situation because we're only gonna run 2 pumps. You can put a third in there as a backup and obviously turn it on when you need to. Fittings here for the wiring for the pumps. So that comes through the bulkhead, so you can do it on both sides. Makes it nice and easy. Now also comes with the O-ring and the bolts you need to put all this in. Now one thing you do have to do for yourself is weld your own brackets onto the fuel tank, as obviously each car is different and where exactly you're going to place it. Now when you order it from Aftermarket Industries, you can also order the pumps that you want. We've gone with Walbro E85 compatible pumps. This is their highest flowing pump. Now looking over this fuel setup system, one of my favorite things about it is just how simple it's going to make our fuel system. Instead of having an external lift pump, external fuel pump and external filters, essentially we have the 2 Walbro pumps with their filters attached all on the hanger inside the fuel cell. So there is nothing external on this fuel tank whatsoever. Everything is self-contained. So essentially all you need is a return line, a feed line to the front of the car, and you have an overflow line which obviously goes to a rollover valve, same as the fuel cell that we have. So the first step for us is to remove our old fuel system, get it out of the car. I'm pretty curious to see how much weight and space we save at the end of all this. And then we're off to CS Engineering, where we're going to mount the fuel cell, we're going to put our own drain on, and then we can assemble the rest of the setup, get it in there, get the car running again.
We've deleted a surge tank. We had 2 separate pumps before, lift pump and feed pump. It's all internal now in the tank. The tank itself has a surge tank built into it. We run 2 lift pumps now, or 2 main pumps. We've lowered the fuel cell. The fuel cell is actually smaller as well for weight. We've also offset the fuel cell to the left side to offset the driver's weight. We've remounted the fuel cooler, shortened all the line system and made the line system a lot more simpler, so we're actually running less lines in the car as well.
With a switch from dual to single -8 feed line and a switch from twin entry fuel rail to single entry fuel rail, a retune of the car was required, so it was on to the dyno at Croydon Racing Developments, where Jim could work his magic with the Haltech. The Aftermarket Industries fuel system had no problem supporting the most amount of power the Jet 200 has ever made, 436 kilowatts at the wheels. But the big test would come at the Yokohama World Time Attack Challenge, where the car performed perfectly all weekend, even in 36-degree heat, with the logs showing there was no loss of fuel flow, fuel pressure, and there was no fuel surge through any of the corners under high G loading, proving that the fuel system most certainly works.